Some people are easy to figure out. You know what they're thinking, what they want, and how they operate. But INFJs are different. They move through the world quietly, picking up on what others miss, and using that insight in powerful ways. It's not manipulation. It's awareness. And it gives them an edge. INFJs are often seen as deep feelers, and that's true. But what's often overlooked is how strategic they are. Behind their calm eyes is a sharp mind that's always watching, processing, and adjusting. They don't need to control a room to influence it. They do it in subtle ways, little shifts in language, timing, or energy, that change everything without most people realizing what just happened. These are mind tricks, but not in the cartoonish way. They're quiet tools, invisible strategies, ways of reading people and guiding outcomes without force. Most INFJs don't even know they're doing it. It's just how they operate. They're wired to feel the room and steer it gently. In this video, we're going to break down 6 of the most powerful mind tricks INFJs use, often without even trying. These tricks are not about control or deception. They're about insight, emotional intelligence, and using quiet power to move through life with intention. And yes, you can learn them too. Trick number 1, matching tone and micro signals. INFJs are experts at creating connection, and one of their strongest tools is something most people never notice. It's the way they subtly match the other person's tone, pace, and body language. This isn't fake. It's instinct. And it builds instant trust. When an INFJ talks to someone, they pay attention to the smallest cues. Is the person speaking fast or slow? Are their shoulders tense or relaxed? Do they need energy or calm? Without even thinking, the INFJ adjusts to meet that energy. Their voice softens or sharpens. Their posture shifts. Their timing aligns. This kind of matching creates comfort. People feel like the INFJ gets them, even if they've only just met. And the truth is, they do. Not just through words, but through rhythm, tone, and flow. It's a quiet way of saying, "You're safe here. I understand you." This technique works especially well in difficult conversations. Instead of clashing with someone's emotion, the INFJ meets it. If the person is anxious, they become calm. If the person is reserved, they match that reserve. And once trust is built, they gently shift the energy in the direction they want. For example, if someone is angry and loud, most people either get louder or shut down. But the INFJ holds steady, subtly lowering their own tone until the other person starts to mirror them. It's not domination, it's redirection. This is why INFJs can calm arguments without raising their voice. It's why people open up to them within minutes. They match first, then lead. This trick doesn't require practice. It requires presence. INFJs live in the emotional undercurrent of every moment. And they use that awareness to shape conversations without ever needing to win them. If you want to use this trick yourself, start by listening more than you speak. Watch how people move. Hear how they talk. And match it gently, not to manipulate but to connect. That connection is where influence begins. Trick number 2, asking guiding questions instead of giving answers. INFJs rarely tell people what to do. Instead, they ask questions. But not just any questions, questions that guide someone to their own answer. It's one of the most subtle and effective tricks they use to influence situations without appearing pushy. This works because most people resist direct advice. If you tell someone what to do, even with good intentions, they often push back. But if you ask the right question, you invite them to think in a new way. Suddenly, the insight feels like theirs, and that makes all the difference. For example, instead of saying, "You need to stop talking to that person," the INFJ might ask, "How do you feel after spending time with them?" That one question shifts everything. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't force. It invites reflection. INFJs understand that most people don't need to be told what to do. They just need help seeing what they already know. And a good question does exactly that. It clears the fog. It opens a path. It gives someone the space to discover their own truth. This kind of guidance builds respect. People don't feel judged or corrected. They feel supported. And because the INFJ isn't pushing their own agenda, trust grows naturally. What makes this even more powerful is timing. INFJs don't just ask any question at any moment. They wait. They listen. They let the conversation breathe. Then, when the moment is right, they drop a single question that turns the entire dynamic. And it works. Because the INFJ has been reading the energy the whole time. They know what's needed and when. If you want to use this trick yourself, practice holding back your advice. Instead of jumping in with solutions, ask something that helps the other person think. You'll be surprised how much more impact that has. INFJs aren't controlling people, but they are guiding people all the time. And they do it through questions, not commands. Trick number 3, pausing to let others think before speaking. INFJs don't rush to fill silence. They pause, and in that pause, they gain control. It's one of the simplest mind tricks they use, and it works almost every time. Because when you stay quiet just a second longer than expected, people lean in. They fill the silence. They reveal more than they planned. Most people are uncomfortable with pauses in conversation. They rush to fill the gap. They talk too much, explain too fast, or backtrack just to avoid that quiet space. But INFJs are comfortable with silence. They use it on purpose. In a discussion, this pause acts like an open door. It says, "There's more here, keep going," and most people do. They talk more. They explain deeper. They start to show what's under the surface, because the INFJ has given them space to do it. This isn't about making people uncomfortable. It's about listening with patience and giving the conversation room to breathe. INFJs know that when people feel heard, they start to speak from a more honest place. The pause also gives the INFJ power. While the other person is speaking quickly or reacting emotionally, the INFJ stays still. They take a breath. They collect their thoughts. Then, when they speak, it's measured and clear. That contrast makes their words stand out. In moments of tension, this trick is especially powerful. Instead of reacting, the INFJ holds the silence. And that silence changes the energy. It creates space for the other person to calm down, rethink, or even feel uncomfortable enough to backtrack on what they just said. People often remember what an INFJ says, not because it was loud or long, but because it was calm and carefully timed. The pause made space for the message to land. If you want to use this trick, try slowing down just a little. Let your words come with intention. And don't rush to respond when someone stops talking. Give it a moment. Let the silence do its work. You'll find that silence, used well, speaks louder than anything else. Trick number 4, framing ideas as possibilities, not commands. INFJs know that language shapes how people respond. So instead of telling people what to do, they present ideas as possibilities. They use soft framing. They say things like, "What if we tried this?" or "Have you considered?" And it changes everything. People don't like being told what to do. Even if the advice is solid, direct instructions can trigger resistance. But when something is offered as a suggestion, not a command, it feels safe. It feels collaborative. And that's where the INFJ works best. This trick is especially helpful in emotional or high-stakes conversations. When someone feels vulnerable or defensive, even a small correction can feel like an attack. So the INFJ softens it. They open a door instead of pushing someone through it. It's not weakness. It's emotional precision. INFJs understand that the way you present an idea is just as important as the idea itself. If you want someone to listen, they need to feel like the choice is still theirs. They might say, "I wonder what would happen if you gave it more time," instead of, "You're rushing this," or, "It sounds like you're carrying a lot," instead of, "You're clearly overwhelmed." Same message, different impact. This kind of language makes people feel respected, and that builds trust. Once that trust is in place, the INFJ can guide more directly, but they rarely need to. Because the person already feels seen. This also works in leadership. INFJs who lead don't bark orders. They guide with curiosity. They invite ideas. They build consensus without demanding control. That's how they get people to follow, not out of fear, but out of belief. If you want to try this trick, pay attention to how you frame your ideas. Instead of saying, "You need to," try, "Have you thought about?" See how people respond when they feel like the idea is coming with them, not at them. INFJs know that influence isn't about pressure. It's about permission. And when you offer ideas gently, people open up. Trick number 5. Steering focus through curiosity, not argument. NFJs don't argue to win. They ask to shift focus. When conversations get stuck, they don't push harder, they redirect. And they do it by asking curious questions that steer the other person's attention somewhere new. This works because people can't hold strong emotions and thoughtful reflection at the same time. If someone is angry or defensive, they're stuck in reaction mode. But a good question interrupts that. It makes them pause. Think. Shift. For example, if someone is spiraling in negativity, an INFJ might say, "What would it look like if things went right for once?" That one question changes the entire direction. It doesn't deny the emotion. It just offers a different road. INFJs use this technique in all kinds of situations. When someone is stuck in blame, they ask about solutions. When someone is scared, they ask about what's still possible. When someone is being harsh, they ask about the why behind the reaction. This doesn't mean they avoid conflict. It means they move through it with intention. Instead of pushing back with force, they guide with curiosity. And because it feels safe, the other person often follows. This is especially powerful in personal relationships. When emotions are high, most people argue. They defend, attack, or shut down. But INFJs lean in. They ask a question. Something like, "What do you need most right now?" Or, "What's this really about for you?" Those questions don't just redirect focus. They open the door to deeper truth. If you want to use this trick, remember, curiosity calms the nervous system. It invites people into reflection. And reflection creates space for real change. Next time a conversation gets stuck, don't argue. Ask. Not to control, but to connect. INFJs have learned that the best way to shift a mind is to first open a heart. Trick number 6. Withdrawing, then re-emerging to reset perception. NFJs know something most people overlook. Presence changes perception. The way you show up, and when you show up, can shift how others see you. That's why INFJs sometimes disappear for a while, then return with new energy, clarity, and influence. It's not by accident. It's a reset. This trick is all about timing. When the INFJ starts to feel emotionally overstimulated, misunderstood, or drained, they step back. They might go quiet in conversations, pull back socially, or become harder to reach. To others, this may seem random. But for the INFJ, it's intentional. That space gives them perspective. It lets them process their feelings, observe patterns, and recharge their inner strength. But more than that, it resets how others relate to them. When someone who's always present steps away, people notice. And when they come back, calm, clear, and grounded, it shifts the dynamic. INFJs use this distance not to punish, but to rebalance. They have learned that constantly showing up when energy is off only causes more confusion or tension. So instead, they leave quietly and return with purpose. When they re-emerge, they often do it in a slightly different way. Maybe their boundaries are stronger. Maybe their communication is sharper. Maybe they're just more focused. Whatever the change is, it creates a new energy. And people respond to it. This cycle isn't about playing games. It's about self-regulation. INFJs don't like being reactive. They want to show up intentionally. And sometimes the only way to do that is to step away and come back on their own terms. This trick works in relationships, work, and social settings. The INFJ pulls back when things get heavy, not to escape, but to recalibrate. And when they return, they often find that the space created more respect, more clarity, and better communication. If you want to use this technique, don't be afraid to take a step back when needed. But make sure you return with new focus and energy. That reset is what makes the trick work. INFJs know that presence isn't just about being there. It's about how you're there. And sometimes, stepping away is the most powerful move you can make. INFJs don't force their way into influence. They guide it. Quietly. Subtly. Through questions, tone, space, and timing. These mind tricks aren't about control. They're about connection, clarity, and inner power. You don't need to be an INFJ to use them. You just need to pay attention, to listen more, to speak with intention, and to remember that the softest voice in the room can often be the strongest. Try using just one of these tricks in your next conversation. Not to manipulate, but to connect. Because true influence starts with understanding, and that's what INFJs do best.